Hello, everyone. Welcome to this journey from becoming something to just being life. Welcome to MadMan. Hello, guys. Thank you for tuning in. So, the topic for today is really intense because my concept is that if it is totally accepted, then it will end all the suffering. Now, let me begin it this way. First of all, let me ask you, who are you? Just take a moment to ask yourself, who are you? What you think you are? Now, why I'm asking this question is we think that there is this personal doership in us that is responsible for controlling our lives. Now, the definition of that personal doership that I've given in my other video is human being is a mechanism in which there exists another mechanism that prevents the human mechanism from seeing its mechanistic nature. Now, what is basically trying to say is that in all of us, we think that there is this personal doership that is responsible for taking all the decisions that happen in our life. Now, the answer to the question, who are you, to most people is the combination of your name, your experiences, your likes, your dislikes, the situation that you're in, and all those things. So, all these things are shaping for you the definition of who you are, or quote unquote you, or that is how you experience quote unquote you. Now, from here onwards, I'm referring that quote unquote you as entity. Now, let me begin the experiment. Now, just clap your hands. Now, what does that entity hear? Now, just look at things around you. Now, what does that entity see? Now, just smell something. Now, what does that entity smell? Now, just touch whatever there is next to you. Now, what does that entity feel? Now, just taste something. Now, what does that entity feel? So, what I'm basically trying to do is to make you guys realize that we think that we are seeing it. The entity thinks that it is seeing something, it is tasting something, it is feeling something, right? So on and so forth. But let me remind you one more time that even in the absence of that entity, even in the absence of whatever you call as yourself, even in the absence of that personal doership, everything will happen exactly how it happened. Or in other words, there is no one that is making it happen, because we think that it is the personal doership, it is the entity that is seeing something, that is hearing something, that is tasting something. But no, this body is capable of hearing, tasting, seeing, and all those things. Because when you open your eyes, the lights enter through your eyes and create whatever kind of image it creates. So it is a happening. It is a happening that happens when light enters through your eyes and the creation of the image happens. But in our experience, we believe that that entity that we call ourselves is making it happen. So there is someone that is making all these things happen. There is someone who takes credit for the happening of all these things. Right? Now, why do I think that this experiment will end all the suffering? Now, because if you can totally accept that there is no one to take credit, if you can totally accept that whoever is taking the credit, that entity is just an illusion, then that vanishes the sense of personal doership. In other words, in order for suffering to be there must be a sufferer, right? And that personal doership is the sufferer. And when the total realization happens that the sufferer, that personal doership is just an illusion, then it will also disappear the suffering. Because as long as suffering to be there, sufferer must be there. When sufferer vanishes, suffering vanishes. Now let me give you this beautiful analogy that I just came across yesterday, and that is, let's assume that there is this self-driving car called Tesla, and you, quote unquote, you, the personal doership, the entity, is sitting at the steering wheel. Now, whenever the car drives beautifully, the entity is proud. Now, whenever the car bumps into another car, whenever it creates an accident, that personal doership is guilty. That entity is guilty because it feels that it could have prevented that accident from happening. But when you realize that the car is a self driving car, it needs no one at the steering wheel, the car has always been driving automatically, then that removes the illusion of personal doership, the illusion of that entity that is sitting at the steering wheel. Now, there is no one to feel guilty, to feel proud of anything. There is no one to suffer. So, basically, what I'm trying to do is, when you say I am suffering, I'm saying that the very entity that you think is suffering does not exist. It is just an illusion. Now, there's this beautiful uh, experiment that Ramesh Balsekar used to recommend, and that is, in a day, just take out 10 to 15 minutes and take one action that you think that you were responsible for taking it. Just one action that happened in a day that you thought you were responsible of taking it. Now, if you closely analyze it, what happened in that moment is that some event happened that you did not have any control over. Your brain reacted to that, and your body created certain kind of action according to its conditioning. So basically, there is no one that took the decision, but the decision happened because the brain reacted to something and body created that kind of action according to the conditioning it has up until that moment of time. So this body is just like a self-driving Tesla that needs no one to sit at the steering wheel. Now, I think this is really difficult to understand. You may have so many questions, but you can just comment on the comment section below, and I'll try to answer all those questions as the clearest manner that I can. But basically, if you can totally accept that the personal doership, that the entity is just an illusion, then there is no one to suffer. Because when the sufferer vanishes, suffering vanishes. Now, having said that, thank you for tuning in and thank you for your love and support. If you want to buy helpful books, just go to www.hellomadman.com. Thank you.